Are you looking for some awesome ways to level up your volunteering game, but not exactly sure where to get started? Well, then stay tuned because in this video, I'm diving into my two favorite tools for identifying and finding opportunities for you to give back your time. All right, let's dive in. So the focus of today's video is identifying organizations you can help volunteer with and finding those, right? Because I think a lot of people, there's the classic dilemma where you say, hey, Nick, I would love to do more. I love what you're doing with the channel, but how do I personally get involved with other nonprofits, right? Because there's the big ones I know, they have got some big national name, but other than that, or if they're not having a large event or some sort of walkathon or you name it, I'm not really sure how to give back and use my time. What's near me right now? Where do I start? So there's two awesome tools. The first one we're going to talk about is great nonprofits, and the second one we're going to talk about today is Volunteer Match. So I'll dive into each of them and kind of the pros and cons for each here in a second, but just know the purpose of these is for you to be able to go in at any time online and see a whole bunch of nonprofits you can look up or dive into, or volunteer opportunities. So no matter what, you should still do a little bit of research as you're looking through these organizations, because most of these sites are big kind of guidebooks or almost like encyclopedias of all the organizations in your area. Caveats and red flags, make sure before you go to any opportunity or you put yourself out there, you know exactly what you're getting into. With all that being said, let's dive into these sites and see what's going on. All right, so we're going to start with great nonprofits. So if you've never heard of this site before, it's super easy to get to, just greatnonprofits.org. I'll throw it up on the screen. It'll be in the comments below too, so easy, one click away. And this is essentially a really big list with reviews of all the nonprofits folks have added to the site. So what this means is it's not necessarily added by that organization, right? So I'll give you some examples here in a second. But what folks try to do is essentially if they've found a nonprofit or they've worked with someone before, they add it on here like an Amazon review or a Yelp or any other sort of review service. And they talk about how their volunteer opportunity went, how the organizers were, and just their overall experience, right? So that way you as a volunteer, someone who's looking to give back, can make sure you're getting the most out of your time, but also having a good experience with the organizers so you know it's a positive place to volunteer and they're actually doing what they set out to do. So let's dive in, do some examples. So I'm going to say, it defaults to find nonprofit. And that's if you want to search for specific names, right? So if like Meals on Wheels is a large organization, your local food bank probably has a name that or if you're looking for a certain animal rescue, awesome. You can start there. But let's assume you're going, totally new. You've got no idea what you're going for, and you're just going to go your city or state, right? So for the example today, I'm going to go ahead and look for stuff in Tampa. So Tampa, Florida, you can see it auto starts popping up. I'm going to go ahead and click into one, and we're going to hit search, right? And then all it's going to do is load. And it's going to automatically sort all of the Tampa nonprofits and charities by reviews and, stars and whatnot, right? And some of them get top rated. There's some awards the site will do for you. And again, all of this is designed to help bolster folks doing good things in your local community. Aside from top review, there's a few other options you can choose from that we're going to dive into, right? So some of the obvious ones, we'll start there. If you volunteered with them before, you can write a review. So you can say, hey, here's how my time was. We'll kind of go into some examples here in a second, but it's just like any review you would write for a service that you purchased or used in the past. There's also Donate Now, and this is really cool where if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm just looking for cool places that have some donation needs that I can help fulfill. It's a one button click away that you can, just give them some capital. As I scroll through, right, there's Big Cat Rescue, Epilepsy Service Foundation, and then we get out of the top rated, but there's still kind of different reviews or, different categories that you can look at. So we're going to click in to one of the services here. So we'll go down, I'm a big bird fan, so let's go ahead and check out the Florida Bird Sanctuary and see exactly what it gives me. So it's going to give you, again, the name of the organization, where it's located, the amount of page views, and then you can also read different stories that people have written about this nonprofit. So you can learn about what they're up to, maybe if there's a cause in particularly that really, lights your fire, it gets your inspiration going. You can see what other people are saying to make sure that, hey, they're actually doing what they say and see case studies that, show that. So again, super easy to donate, which is great. So if you're watching this and you have a nonprofit, you should really make sure you're on here because it's an easy source of donations coming in. It also gives you things, and I love this, ways to look up and verify that the organization you're working with is in fact a real registered organization, right? So it's got the EIN number. And think of this like an identifier for your nonprofit. So if you can actually look up this EIN number and confirm that they're a registered nonprofit, confirm that they know that their name checks out, it's the real organization, you're not just kind of giving them money away from a scam, and it kind of protects you. So, if you're going to go work with this group, they are verified and they know what they're up to, right? They're verified by the government. This is a nonprofit. This is where your money's going. It's not just kind of a random group that could add themselves to the page. So I really like that security element when using this site. And then it's going to give you some other basic information of how to get involved with this group, right? So it's going to be, here's their specific website. They might add their Facebook page. You can favorite it. So if you have an account and say, hey, you know what? I want to get my top 10 things I want to volunteer for or donate to, you can flag them all. And that way throughout the year, you pull them up, see if they need anything, and kind of rotate in and out for volunteering services. You also see all there's different tags. So, hey, if I really like bird sanctuaries, I can actually click into this and see all of the other bird sanctuaries that there are on this site. So the one downside here, right, is this is just going to give you a tag of every bird sanctuary there is on the site. So immediately, you're in very different states and locations. Like this one's in Florida too. This one's in Florida, but now we're in California, and it kind of bounces around. So you just have to look, right, and make sure that when you click on certain links, it might take you away from, what you're looking for. And then you've got all the different community stories that you can see. And I love this. You can filter by different roles of that community service, right? Because you might say, hey, what does it look like to work there? What does it look like to volunteer? What if I'm a client and they're volunteering for me? How do their services go? And just make sure that if you're, depending on your point of view, you can get reviews related to you, right? So if we're going to go volunteer, we want to filter by volunteer stories, right? To see how it would be if we would go volunteer. And we can scroll down. And they say, look, here's, out of all of these, there's 69 stories from volunteers. And most of these are 5 stars. So you say, okay, I'm kind of getting an idea of what's going on. People can add pictures. And the whole point is you can get a clear view of what it's like to go volunteer here, right? And say, hey, it's a great nonprofit. If you like working with birds, here's what you should go do, right? They truly care for them. So it's a very cool way to get an inside view of how to work with this nonprofit. And then there's other stuff you can do, right, to help promote the organization. So you can get a badge, right, and highlight them on your site, which is kind of crazy, right? So if let's say you have your own website or your own kind of social media stuff, you can actually grab these badges and add them to your site. So as we grow this channel, we'll kind of feature some of the nonprofits we work with. But if you say, hey, Nick, I would love to kind of on my personal brand show where I've been volunteering and why, it's just a really cool feature that they have that you can promote them and link them out. The other nice thing too is because it takes them back to this page, remember, it's going to link them back to these donation options. So if you're particularly, maybe you care about animals or, maybe you care about kind of giving back for food pantries, you can go grab the organizations that you've been working with and had a positive experience with and say, you know what, I'm going to highlight them in other ways on my site or my services, right? So we'll go back. So I looked at most reviewed, which is going to be their default view, right? And that way you see who's had the most volunteer opportunities. But I do want to show you there's some other sort methods that you can utilize on the site. And I think that's important because for 2 reasons, right? So one, you want to make sure that when you're looking for opportunities, you can really dial in to what you want. And 2, I think it's always good to look at things other than the most amount of reviews. Because if you say, Nick, how do I make the biggest impact for a newer organization? Or, how do I help improve the overall organizational health in my area? A lot of the times, the group that's got thousands of reviews probably has solved their volunteer issues, right? They need volunteers. I'm not saying don't go volunteers for big organizations. Obviously, they need the help, and they've done very well. That's why they're big and super successful. But every once in a while, you might say, how do I help out the newer folks who've identified a problem in my city, and they're trying to grow, and they just really are in dire need, and then maybe they're the new guys, right? So you can search by some different options, right? By what's most relevant to you, maybe nearby city. So if you're not exactly in Tampa, you're in a closer city nearby, highest rating. And then here's my favorite section is you can filter by issue. You simply go to the site, So we're going to go with food. So let's say we really want to help out with some food issues. Boom. All of the lists that you find now, food-related issues in your city that are a click away, so you can go volunteer and figure out how to help them and see what they're backed by. And again, we'll go with flavors of change. You can click in, and it has all the information you need to contact them to get started. So the nice thing that I like to do, and we'll click out here and check them out. You can check out their socials. If you've got their direct phone and email, I'll typically email folks out of here and say, hey, saw you guys online. Would love to hear about your volunteer opportunities. How do I get in touch? Another very easy thing you can do, and we'll click into it here just to show it off, is you can go directly to their site and learn more. And the goal of all this, right, is to educate yourself so you can really be that volunteer pro. You're going to know the organization beforehand. You're going to know the reviews. You're going to know what it's like to have that volunteer experience because you've seen, hundreds of reviews and testimonials from other people who've been there. So before you even start the volunteer process, you know exactly what to expect. You know the organization you're working for. You've validated they're a real organization. You could pull their EIN number, look them up, get their contact information. So it's a safe place you can go, not get scammed, donate funds, and give out your time all through a quick, maybe 5-minute sanity check through this website. So I think it's a very awesome tool to really get started. So there's a few other ones out there. So I want to show you one more that I've had a really good experience with. So let's go to our second site we're going to highlight. And this is volunteermatch.org. A little bit different, but very similar concept. You can find opportunities and pair yourself up with excellent nonprofits to go volunteer your time. Just like before, it's going to prompt a city. Well, again, we'll go back and see what's available in Tampa. Find opportunities. So right away, you'll see gives us a list of opportunities in your area. So what you might notice is, hey, Nick, where are the ratings? How do I know who's who? And the reason this is a little bit different is that this isn't necessarily always tied to a organization, right? So it's specifically folks that are seeking volunteers for a needed event, and then it will tell you, who it's hosted by, right? So, My Charity for Kids. So in this case, most of these, if you see, are nonprofit initiatives, which is great. But the reason why they're not giving you specific ratings or anything like that is I'll show you once you click in, because these are not for organizations. These are for opportunities where you need to volunteer. So here's big differences, right? We had a nonprofit searching site where you could look for organizations and filter out organizations you want to look for and then reach out to those organizations to see how you can be of service. Where this site, volunteermatch.org, is solely focused on pairing you up with opportunities in your local community where they need volunteers. And that's what this organization is phenomenal for. Because look, off one search, here's 30 plus opportunities where they need volunteers, where they might need local leaders, share your knowledge with the small business owner, volunteers for Gasparilla, right? Save your community with, birthday cleanups. There's all sorts of different opportunities here where it's not necessarily tying you to an organization. It might just be, hey, you know what? We really need someone to come chat with some younger generations. Will you come, read a book for 30 minutes? We already have the event. We already have the locations planned. We just really need someone to come hang out, share this day with us. With all that in mind, let's check out all the causes happening around Tampa and pick one just so I can give you an example of what it looks like when you dive into one of their opportunities. So just like before, we can search by specific causes that we want to volunteer with. So I'm going to go ahead and look through and say, I really want to help with animals. So we click in and immediately have different options to volunteer with different animal groups. So we're clicking in, right, and it gives you kind of their sales pitch for this volunteer opportunity. And again, just like before, on the right side, it's going to say, look, here's the causes that this is specific for, where you have to be, when was this opportunity posted, what is it for, right? You need to be able to manage animals. Obviously, it's an animal-related opportunity. And then here's their sales pitch, if you will, on why they really need your help. So for this one in particular, right, you're opening up your home to an animal in need. You created a space in a shelter for another animal to be saved, right? So in Tampa and a lot of other places all around the country, they have shelters where, unfortunately, if they're full, there's no place for these animals to go. So they're trying to figure out, how do we get these animals out of the shelter so we have more folks, be it through fosters or what have you, to create a better place for animals around Tampa. So once you've read their bio and you say, hey, you know what, this is an opportunity that I'd really like to kind of volunteer for, I'm passionate about, what do you do next? Super simple. You just hit, I want to help. It'll put you in touch with the organizers, and then you're ready to go, right? So way more streamlined than kind of having to go through and click through the organization, figure out what they're up to. If you want, you can still look them up, right? So I can see this was hosted by Foster Space. Here's where they are. Here's where they're based out of. So these folks are actually based out of Austin, Texas, but doing stuff all over the country. That's always cool to see. You can see they have 50 opportunities. There's their website, mission statement, descriptions. So you can click in, make sure they're real, right? So here's all their information. We go to their site. So very, just like before, where it's, you know what, I can still validate who I'm working with beforehand, learn a little bit about what they do. But if I wanted to skip all of that and just directly sign up to volunteer, I just click here, have an account, and I'm ready to go. Two awesome tools to really jumpstart your volunteer game. I really think there's so many people out there that constantly tell me, Nick, you know, I've got the time. I just don't know where to go. There's not a lot of causes near me. I go to every park cleanup I can. But other than that, what do I do to give back? I'm just like, oh my gosh, there are hundreds of thousands of opportunities out there that are just a click away. So if you really want to be a pro volunteer, it's not about, picking random weekends. It's find causes you're passionate about and plug in, right? Dive into those communities. It took 2 minutes of effort for me to get matched up with a cause, and that's all it takes for you to become an expert and dive in to the volunteering community. Thanks again for watching. I hope you use the 2 sites that we linked below to find the next organization you want to volunteer with or your next volunteer opportunity so you can join me on my journey to be the nicest Nick. I think together we can do a whole bunch of really good deeds and really make the world a better place. And before you go, some exciting news about the channel, but remember to like and subscribe, because in the coming weeks, we're going to get a behind-the-scenes tour at the food bank, and I could not be more excited. People have been seeing the channel. They're excited about what we're working on. They want their organizations highlighted and to bring out more ways for everyone to get involved to support their causes. So make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I will see you next week.